Hello, welcome back to Beauty Bee and to a probably overly thorough review of the NYX Ultimate Utopia palette. I have owned this for quite a while. Bought this sometime very late July, maybe very early August of 2020. So I've had it for a little over a year. I have used the heck out of it. I think you can tell I have 5 little pans in there, and I'm actually pretty close to hitting pan in a couple of other shades. For quite a while there, I was counting my usage every time I used this palette, and then I got to 100 and stopped counting. So that's been quite a while at this point. I think I've used this palette over 150 times. What I'm trying to get at is this is as far removed from a first impression review as you can get. I've really formed some strong opinions about this palette. I've definitely learned how to work with it, and I thought I would share my experiences in this video. If you would like to see some other reviews on palettes that I have owned for quite a while, used 50, 100 plus times, please like, subscribe, and then let me know in the comments below. I don't really know if there is interest in this kind of video. Let's start out with just some basic information on this palette. As I said earlier, this is the NYX Ultimate Utopia palette. It is a 16 pan palette. Each of these shades is 0.02 ounces or 0.83 grams. This retails for somewhere around $18. It's drugstore makeup, so you know it can vary a little bit from store to store. I got mine, I believe, buy one get one 50% off at Ulta, so I think I did technically pay the full $18 for this palette, but got a reduced price on another NYX palette that I purchased at the same time. Among the 16 shades in this palette, there are 8 mattes and 8 not mattes. I say not mattes because I think there are actually 4 different finishes to the more shimmery shades. The first would be this essentially a matte with a little bit of glitter in it. This is a really light peachy yellow shade, and it has some gold glitter. I see very little glitter actually come through on my eye, but it is in there and I can definitely see it in the swatch. Moving from most subtle to most impactful, the next stop would be these 2 shimmers. These are really smooth. They don't have any glitter in them that I can really see, but they are very shiny. They're very pretty. There's an orange one, more of a peachy shade, and then there is this brown, which has a little bit of a green gold duochrome effect to it. You won't be able to see it very well in the swatch, but it's what I'm wearing all over my lid today. This is a really pretty shade. It's also a really unique shade. I don't think that I have anything particularly similar to this. We amp it up one more step. We have these 3 shades. There is a peach, a mint, and a blue-green shade. I know that this looks very blue in comparison to the mint, but it really does show up a little bit more green on the eye. And these are a little bit more glittery. They're definitely more impactful over glitter glue than they are like this. I get quite a bit of fallout from these shades, particularly from the green and the blue if I use them without glitter glue. The peach I can get away using without glitter glue, but I do think that it performs a little bit better with it underneath. And this is probably my favorite formula in the palette. I like that it is glittery, but it's not so chunky or crazy brilliant that I feel like it has to be the statement element of my look. I mean, I can wear this mint glitter in a relatively subtle way, and I really enjoy the effect that it gives. So now we have the really chunky glitters. This would be this very yellow green shade, and then this brown gold. And they are beautiful. I just find that I don't get a ton of use out of them because, I mean, they are very bold. And that is without any glitter glue underneath. I mean, these are impressive. You would absolutely want to use glitter glue with these. They will fall out all over your face in a just absolutely ridiculous way, but they are stunning. I'm really impressed with the shimmers. I think the shimmers are definitely the standouts of this palette. But let's also talk about the mattes. I find that the 8 mattes in this palette get progressively drier as you move from lightest to deepest. These mattes in particular are very soft, almost creamy to the touch. Whereas when you get down, especially to these 3 shades, they're actually quite dry. So let me swatch the mattes from lightest to deepest and we can talk through them. So here we have the 8 mattes. Up at the top, we have this really light pink. This is actually a really good skin tone match for me, so you're probably not going to be able to see it pretty much at all in the swatch. You probably noticed that I actually have quite a bit of pan in this because it is such a close skin tone match for me. It's a shade that I really like to use, especially if I've gotten a little bit of dark shadow too high up right here. This works great as almost an eraser shade. It really lightens things up, brightens things up, and while you can still see a little bit of the shadow through, I find that it's a way easier way to bring some lightness back to that area without bringing out makeup remover and potentially destroying everything I have worked for. So that is probably my most used shade in the entire palette. I won't say it's my favorite, though it is very useful and utilitarian. It's not that exciting. Some of the shimmers were a lot more fun. I find myself not using this pink super often, which I'm kind of surprised by. I think that it goes well with the other colors in the palette. It's just not a color that I've been super interested in wearing on my eyes recently. I have no really good reason for that. It performs nicely, it's a pretty shade. I just don't find myself using it a whole lot. This matte peach is a really nice quality shade. I use it quite a bit. It's a pretty standard color. I don't think that this is significantly better than the matte peaches you could find anywhere else, but it is quite solid. Next we have this really interesting grayish sage green. This is what I'm wearing in my crease as well as under my eye today, and I actually have it underneath the shimmery brown that I showed earlier to bring out a little bit more of that green flip in it. I think that this is probably the most unusual matte in the palette. I definitely don't see shades like this super often. I certainly do not own anything particularly similar. It's unique, it's interesting, but it's also just very pretty. I really like this shade and I find myself using it quite a bit. This little bit deeper sort of terracotta brown shade is probably the one true mid-tone matte that there is in this palette. Well, clearly this shade is very, very light. These 3 shades I would describe all as a little bit lighter mattes. This is really the only mid-toned one. I used this quite a bit last fall, but I just haven't been using it a whole lot recently. I suspect that as we get more into September, October, November, I will be using it quite a bit again though. This is a really, really pretty shade. I find that I can pull this a little bit more orange or a little bit more brown depending on what I pair it with, and I think that is really great. It definitely adds to the versatility of this palette because, as you will notice, there aren't any true browns in here. It is entirely colorful, though they are quite subtle colors. And then these 3 shades at the bottom, I only use these as outer corner shades or as liner. I find that they all are a little bit patchy if you try to spread them over a large area. So if you are maybe of a deeper skin tone or you really prefer super dark looks and you would want to put one of these deep mattes over your entire lid, this is probably not the palette for you. However, they do work really well in the outer corner. I'm wearing the gray as liner today. I find myself using it that way quite a bit and I really enjoy it. I think that the formula on these is good enough. I don't think it is next level amazing. Certainly if I bought these shades as singles, I would have been really disappointed in them. However, I find that I can actually see differences in these three shades. They don't just look dark on the eye. You really can see that this one is more gray, this one is significantly more blue, and this one is very much purple. They don't just look deep. I filmed myself putting this look on this morning, which hopefully I will have running on silent over on this side of the screen. I've also done several get ready with me's or tutorials over the past year or so that either just use this palette or at least prominently feature this palette. So I will have several of those linked up in the cards. The short version of my review of this palette is I think that it is very, very much worth it. This is my favorite drugstore palette that I have ever used. I love the color story on this. That is definitely the standout feature for me. I love that you can go very, very bold with this. I mean, I've done a put this lime green glitter all over my lid and deepen things up with this purple before, or you can go extremely neutral and extremely everyday. I love that it is an entirely colorful palette that manages to be super wearable. You can definitely get a wide variety of complete looks out of this palette. And the formula is not the most impressive thing that you will ever use, but it is very usable. There isn't a shade in this palette that I would consider a dud. I'm really happy with all of them, and I'm thrilled that I made this purchase. I have been so happy with this palette. So thank you so much for watching. Like I said earlier, if you want to see more of these in-depth reviews, I hope you will let me know that in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope you'll consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed this video. Looking forward to seeing you all next time. Bye!